Bob Chapman, the international forecaster. How you doing today, sir? Mr. Chapman, are you with us today, sir?
You better believe it.
Glad to have you on. We've been having just a little bit of technical difficulties, but we appreciate you joining us. And to begin with, I just wanted to ask you, Mr. Chapman, we have witnessed the looting of our economy, the robbery by the Federal Reserve, the jobs evaporating as planned, as the economic by design collapse continues to unfold. And at the same time, we're seeing the preparations for mass vaccinations, vaccinating the youth, using the military to implement the 3-shot fall vaccine. We have reported on preparations from all over the country, even Walmart getting involved with the mass vaccinations. What do you expect to see this fall from this manufactured crisis?
Well, I think you're going to see a number of people who are going to refuse to take the vaccinations. And we don't know what government's going to do, but there's a number of things they could do. And number one, forbid people to mix among the public and quarantine them if they refuse to take shots. And that would mean putting them into the already prepared government internment camps. Then, of course, along with that would come the government brainwashing, but on the streets, I think there's going to be a lot more demonstrations, as we've seen at these town hall type of meetings, where people from all walks of life have stood up and said, look, we're just sick and tired of things like this phony swine flu epidemic and 9/11 and make-believe wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, make-believe in the sense that they were deliberately created so they could have a war and extend their influence into the Middle East and control to an extent what Russia and India and China do. And so the public is finally realizing, and gee, it's taken a long, long time. When I was in counterintelligence 50 years ago, actually it was more than that, and the first thing I found out through the information that had not been declassified at the time, and since was in 1967, that we prepared Pearl Harbor so that the Japanese would attack, and they had the Japanese diplomatic code broken in 1937, both the United States and England, and they wanted America in a war. And so this is nothing new. They have these wars for profit and control, and so all of these things put together, the public is finally catching on, and we get very little response from Congress because most of them are paid off or they're compromised. So it's something that's going to continue to escalate. And just like the bank failures, we're looking at 72, up another 5 or 6. And what they don't tell you about is all the banks that they've merged into the bigger banks that they keep from the American public. And so these are the kinds of things that are tearing America apart, and it's having the same effect in most countries throughout the world.
Well, that was something that I wanted to ask your opinion of. I mean, it does me good to see that the people are actually coming out, showing up at these town hall events, asking hard questions, holding up signs. Is the public finally slowly waking up to the facade of the two-party system and recognizing how sold out that they have become, in your opinion?
Yes, they are, and I think it's due to programs like this and the information that's available on the internet. And we're hurting them bad because these people would not have the knowledge to say what they're saying in these kinds of meetings and demonstrating unless they had the information at their disposal, which they've never had before. So they're ready to march, so to speak. Now, what triggers that? The trigger is the economic situation that the government and the powers behind government have allowed to take place. The window is open And yes, they can do what they want outside the window, but we can also go inside. And so it presents a window of opportunity for the Illuminati to bring the world economy to its knees financially and economically so they can implant world government, but at the same time they stand the risk of exposure and overthrow. And so we're on equal footing here because these are the last days of their attempt to try to institute their world government. And so part of that is the destruction of the system, as I said. And unemployment, the new figure for U6 is 20.8%. The government figure for U6 is 16.8%. The difference is the birth-death ratio. And I explain that in my international forecaster. And what essentially is the government says they can't reach small and medium-sized companies, so what they do is they guess at how many jobs were liquidated or created. And of course the whole thing is a farce. Whenever they need lots of jobs, they create them. And so what's happening here, too, is that there are going to be millions of people who are soon going to be running out of unemployment benefits. My guess is they will continue them for another 6 months or a year. But it doesn't alter the fact that people don't like living at that level on an unemployment check either. People like to work, most of them. I mean, they don't want to sit around the house all the time. And so, and sitting around the house all the time, what they're doing is listening to these programs and looking at the internet, and they're saying, gee, this is not what we're being told in the general media as to why we have a problem. It's much, much different than I ever realized. And so you're right. People are finding out, and they're not going to take it anymore, as the last gentleman said, who was on your program here. And we're headed towards very, very tumultuous times, and you've got to prepare for it, emotionally, physically, financially. I mean, you've got to get dehydrated and freeze-dried foods in. You have to have a filter. You got to be able to defend your family. You got to have your extra funds, we'll call them, and gold and silver-related assets. And if you don't, you're not going to stand a chance.
Well, I certainly agree with you on that. And we are coming up on a break. And when we come back, I want to ask you what strikes me so much as odd is here we've got the Illuminati totally destroying our economy, and the American people are waking up and wising up and standing up against it. And now we're on the heels of the swine flu that they magically see through their crystal ball coming out in September, October, and preparing for mass vaccinations. You probably are aware of the International Swine Flu Conference that's going to be held in Washington later this month. In that, they go into detail about preparations for handling mass fatalities. We're coming up on a break, Mr. Chapman. Stay with me, and we'll be with you right back after the break.